pleased to welcome Tom Scarice back to 06880, the podcast. He's in his fourth year as Westport Superintendent of Schools, started during the COVID year of 2000, and finally last year was really able to start moving past that. So, Superintendent, thanks for coming on today's podcast.
Thank you. My biennial visit to the podcast.
So I want to start with an easy question.
Sure.
Best part of the school year so far?
I think you will find most faculty, families, and even students will say, the ones that have been with us for a few years, this is the most normal it has felt in a long time. This year so far, there's just an overall sense of normalcy that even last year, we didn't have. It's truly there right now, which is a great feeling. It's refreshing. Of course, we still have operational issues, big picture issues, all of that, but it feels like the shadow cast from the pandemic and everything that was happening over those 2 or 3 years has receded to a level that, okay, we're here now, we're back. So that's probably the best part of it so far.
And what keeps you up at night?
How long is the podcast? There's a lot, there's a lot right now. I could list capital issues, building, the new building at Long Lots, the budgets to this. Honestly, what keeps me up at night as a superintendent is the same thing that keeps me up at night as a father. Being a child or a teen in 2023 is infinitely more complex than not only I experienced, and I'm old, but than I think the average adult can even understand and appreciate. It is, there are so many complications to growing up in this era that exploit what already is challenging for kids. So what do I mean? If you are a child, like most child, at a stage developmentally, adolescence, later adolescence, early, doesn't matter, who is consumed by what others think of you, you're growing up in the era of comparison. Comparison like we've never seen before. And it's for some kids incredibly destructive to their lives. And even the most well-adjusted kids, it is a drag on their lifestyle and their well-being, which is really what bothers me. So that, above anything to do with school systems and the normal operations, this is I started my 13th year in March of being a superintendent. So I've seen a good deal. Every year there's always, never saw that before. But this era of being a kid is what keeps me up at night.
And what's the school's role in that? Because obviously you can't solve all those problems or all those issues.
Well, it depends on who you're asking. Because you may ask some people
they expect you to.
And we're answered everything. I would say that, the school's role is always to partner. The school's role is always to work in collaboration with communities, with families, with parents, and so forth. Some may see that as adversarial. Some may see that as truly a partnership and collaborative. We do have a role, but there are things that now we are asked to do that we just don't have the wherewithal, nor is it appropriate for us to do. There are boundaries that have to be set well beyond the school. So look at technology. Last year we did something which was rather progressive at the time. We put serious boundaries on the use of personal devices in schools. We braced for a revolt, not only from kids. We braced for a revolt from parents that I need to get in touch with my kid. And I understand, I'm a parent too, I get it. It was nary a whimper, okay? We had a couple that we dealt with in isolation. Is it perfect at the high school? No, I would say that they're very savvy and there's ways that they could work their devices in. And even, we get exhausted with enforcing things sometimes. But as far as the overall mission, I believe that it's gone a long way towards tamping that down. The distractibility of this generation because of buzzers and beepers. And, when I sat down with you, I put my phone over there, okay? Because it'll vibrate all day long. kids go through that article over the weekend. I think it was the average kid 700 a day or something like that of buzzes and beepers and all that. And your brains aren't wired. Maybe some other generation will be in a million years, but right now we're not wired to handle that. So that's an example of how we can partner. But as soon as they leave, what controls or whatever parents, that's their private right to determine. But it does bleed and impact into what we're doing.
I would imagine you are also kept awake at night by security. Mm-hmm. And there was a recent, just the other day, a swatting incident.
There was, yeah. Yep.
And I think that reinforced the recent decision to have police officers on every school campus.
Yeah.
Their duties are outside the building unless there's an emergency inside. Mm-hmm. Some people want the police to stay out.
Yeah.
Some want them inside.
Yep.
What's your feeling on that?
So I'll speak to school security in general, and then also the kind of the model that we have. School security in general, so everything changed. God, I think it's probably close to 25 years ago now with Columbine, and then again, the sea change after Sandy Hook. But Columbine was a wake-up call for schools and law enforcement because it was the protocols in place that were questioned that, whoa, these are dated, these are not, serving us in a safety way. What Sandy Hook did is it moved even further to the securing of building envelopes and entrances, where when I started in Madison, you just think it was March of 2012, I started superintendent. When I went to one of the schools, I went to the door, I turned the handle, I opened, and I walked in. I mean, that's not that long ago. Yeah. And there was a sense of pride that we have a safe community, we'll keep our doors open. That's unconscionable now, right? You would never do that. No school would do that now. So security has changed. What I've been able to, what I am able to communicate to the school community and the Westport community is, I'm not just a first year superintendent coming in saying, I'm confident that if something were to happen, here's what our plans are. We've lived through now 5 episodes where we have had to actively partner with the police. And for 3 of those, in the moment, we didn't know they were false alarms. So talk about a great test case and seeing do the protocols and processes work. I'm really confident based on those experiences, they did work, they do work, and our post-incident debrief with the police, we just tightened up any areas that we thought we had to tighten up, but there weren't many. The communication with the police for responsiveness was remarkable in all of them, and even this past week. So when it comes to the model that we have, what I am really focused on as an educational leader leading a school system that needs to ensure security. I'm not a security expert. I boil it down to 2 very simple strategies. What do we do to slow threats down? What do we do to speed up responses? This model, now we slow threats down with all of the ways that we lock and secure and, have patrol and, notification cameras, so forth, to notice if something's not right, make a call, all those, there's a whole bucket of those. But speeding up responses is in large part to the latest model that the chief and I had worked on with having the school security officer campus model. So we have an officer that's stationed at the Coley campus for middle and elementary school, an officer stationed Saugatuck Kings Highway, one on the Bedford Staples campus, one on that shares between Long Lots and Greens Farms. And we have a lot of officers patrolling those areas already because of the post road access for Greens Farms. In addition to the SRO at the high school. So when a call is made, I am confident now that responsiveness will be really fast. And it has been. Yeah. It has been. Yeah. And it proved the other day.
School buses.
School buses.
Something no one thinks about it until they do.
Something I think about often.
So first student or new vendor, how close are they to finding a new permanent spot for their many buses?
So the interim plan has been implemented, and so far we're off to a great start with that. We have worked with the town and the chief to secure 30 or so buses at the Greens Farms train station. Police are working actively to monitor traffic to make sure that our impact is negligible. It's already a high traffic area, so I don't know if the buses will complicate the literally thousands of cars that go through there. But we have had a successful week there to kick off, and that has contributed to us vacating all buses from Staples, which was really the primary issue. The Bedford buses that are stationed there overnight and during the day, the Coley L, Coley Middle, and long lots has not been the issue Staples has. And it was just so tight in the front there. We were approved, but it was tight. And the fire marshal really said, I don't know if I can do this long term. And we totally respected that. We pulled this off with the help of the chief in the town. That will keep us going forward. We will go to planning and zoning and look to extend in the interim until we do secure a permanent lot. I can't say too much because of negotiations. There are a couple, one in particular that's in play right now. And then we have a couple of backups as well that are being looked at. So First Student it's a big operation. They have an entire wing of their corporation that works with land use and so forth. So they have their own representation in real estate and so forth that will help them to continue to look for property. It'll come down to, will that be something the town engages in, or will First Student engage in it, all those legal details. But I'm confident we're going to make it happen. What I'm really pleased with is that far from perfect, and any parent who has had a kid not picked up or been late or early, don't misread the next statement, okay? I understand that. We've taken the calls. We've actually gone a long way to improve that. The performance right now, especially of our big yellow buses, I think they're called Type 1, the big yellow buses, the performance of those buses with a decentralized model, okay? Buses are everywhere, with another bus company, not to be named, taking some of our drivers after the first week by enticing them with additional bonus money and so forth, with the unprecedented traffic in town. And if you talk to a resident, they'll tell you, no, we haven't seen it quite like this long, maybe episodes. But it feels like every road is being done at the same time, and every sidewalk and every tree is down. It's all happening at once. But with all those headwinds, our arrival and departure times are infinitely better on a whole than last year at this time. Infinitely better. We have a 1 or 2 buses per school that we still catch our breath with every day. Last year it was 4 or 5 or 6 at every school.
You mentioned the traffic. One of the issues is parents who have to pick up their kids from elementary school because of the school end time. And I know that there have been consultants who have said there should be more time between the different schools.
Yeah.
What's going to happen with that?
Yeah. Well, eventually something has to give. Okay, so I go back to being a know-it-all teenager and my blue-collar father saying to me quite often, you've got 6 pounds of potatoes, you got a 4-pound bag. Something's got to give. Okay. So what could give? What could give is a range of looking at school times, looking at time between tiers. Something that can give is that we move forward and accept this inconsistency that has happened. I mean, that could be what gives, that we just live with that. I don't think that's the answer. 2 different bus companies have evaluated the traffic, the neighborhoods, the streets, and they both have recommended 45 minutes between tiers. That's not new news. That's actually probably 10 to 20-year-old news. We just had it refreshed last fall, and it was the same recommendation from, coincidentally, First Student. We have stuck with the 30-minute between tiers for a variety of reasons to honor start times that were adjusted the year before I got here. That didn't take effect until after the COVID hybrid year. Yeah. So I think we're on a little bit of a delay with the effect of that, because what we have are not, the 5 years since then or 4 years since then. It really took a bit of a delay for a year or two because of the hybrid. So folks started to feel that definitely last year and this year. And I think it's less start times, Dan. I think it's more end times. Yeah. And not biblical end times, school end times. I think it is the fact that we have families, rightfully so, who have active kids, which is great, okay? Active kids involved in extracurriculars and so forth. But getting out of an elementary school at 3:45 could be really hard when you're trying to get to Norwalk, say, okay, or you're trying to get to Fairfield for gymnastics or something like that. So that's been the problem that we have tried to figure out. We also have faculty who, a good portion, don't live in Westport, and they're in the throes of the commute on the way home, which has also gotten worse because I live that. Yeah. That's gotten worse. Definitely this year is the worst I've seen it, actually, in my 4 years here. So it's a lot of complicated issues. I have not found what the standard was to determine whether or not the schedule change would be determined as successful or not. I think I understand like the rationale. I totally support the sleep science and the later start time. I wouldn't double back on that, even though I wasn't part of that. I support that. But the unintended consequences piece is what I think we're going to have to reckon with eventually. And I do think part of that is going to be the time between tiers, the 30 to 45 minutes, because as a parent who's got older kids now, but those minutes are still precious in the morning. When my kids were little, I know what those young families are feeling. I lived that. Those minutes are like you're looking at that clock and they are ticking and ticking and ticking, and you're trying to organize and get dressed and you forgot this. And those minutes are precious. Parents probably, I believe, most would value reliability over anything else. I'll take a trade-off as long as I know that bus will actually be at that door at 8:23, not a minute before, not a minute after. And I don't know the answer to this. We'll have to look at this. That might be what we get trade-off wise with a 15-minute addition between tiers is reliability. So yes, I think about buses.
But you also like to think about strategic plans.
I do.
So we go from the micro to the macro.
Yeah.
You want to talk about
your we have
strategic plan?
Great stuff going on this year. So, during a pandemic, it's the Westport way. We're going during a pandemic. Let's write a strategic plan too. Why not? Okay. The board asked me to do that, which actually was one of the more fulfilling parts of the time that I had during the strategic plan, during the pandemic, because I was able to connect with community members, with faculty, with students on a way that I wouldn't ordinarily. So the ground level work of that was great. Then we pulled together 30 or so people and faculty, largely some administrators, and fleshed out our priorities. And the two big pillars are well-being, and the other big pillar is around collaborative problem solving. And the theory is that, well-being, there were some acute issues around well-being even before the pandemic, but there's also a strong belief that they're called soft skills. I call them people skills that are really necessary to thrive as a young adult and beyond in the world. That academic content knowledge is necessary, but insufficient to thrive in the world today, the modern world today. And that is truly a partnership with parents. Okay, parents are not partnering on how to convert a fraction to a decimal to a percent. Okay, they may help to make sure homework is done and all that, but we are truly partnering on the whole child piece with families. So that was one of the big pillars, well-being, immediate needs and long-term needs. The other pillar was around collaborative problem solving, with the theory that solving complex non-standard problems is a norm for young adults and beyond. That will be your life, personally, professionally. Doing it alone is rare, if ever. You will have to do this work with other people, either at work, in your personal life, whatever. So we took those two pillars, and the work you're seeing most immediately is around the well-being work. We definitely address over the past year or two the more acute cases that were a result from the pandemic and even slightly before the pandemic in well-being concerns, social emotional concerns. We brought back responsive classroom, which at the elementary level had really kind of evaporated a bit. We maintained the ruler program that we have. Responsive classroom is a lot around culture in the classroom and in the school. The ruler is a lot around emotional regulation and teaching of that. We've added another layer of a program called Second Step, which gets into some great work on goal setting, growth mindset, and additionally into all the real strong anti-bullying work that we do. So the SEL piece was getting shored up, is getting shored up. But another way to get at well-being is to have students feel a sense of agency, that I can do for myself, that I can be independent. And voice is a big way to get there. to illustrate and give examples of voice is a great example of agency, which is a great way to establish your well-being. So we have some really exciting student voice opportunities this year. Every school will have a student leadership council. Okay, I wouldn't call it necessarily a student council at every school, but some type of leadership opportunity for all kids. And it's not necessarily an election at the younger levels, though we will have one at Staples. And it's a way for kids to have their fingerprints on what happens in the school. So we made the technology change. Would have been great if we had a student leadership council to run that through with them and talk about that, right? So very active. They'll do spirit days. They'll really have a voice in what happens in the school. The schools will rotate kids in and out, get a lot of opportunities there. The high school is going to have an election. They're going to bring their student assembly to a more formal level with elections. No campaigning, just elections for kids who put their name in the hat. We are moving forward with the student rep for the Board of for the student reps for the Board of Education as well. So all these pieces are related to the student voice element of the strategic plan. We're also asking for student feedback in a way we never have before. So the principals will all meet with those student leadership groups, and they've also created ways for students to give feedback on their experience, on how things are going in school. We want to hear from them. We want to know. So it could be at the trimester point of a course at the secondary level. It could be at the trimester point of the year at the elementary level, where a group of kids come together, or there's age-appropriate surveys, smiley face, frown face, that kind of thing. So I am excited about getting student voice and student feedback really amplified in the system. And that's a direct result of the strategic plan. The other two that are more long-term, but I think are powerful, we're really leaning into the growth mindset research from Stanford University. Carol Dweck's been around for 12 to 14 years and codified the way she codified it. And we're looking to grow that growth mindset work across the system, but starting with community knowledge building. So we're going to do a book study as a community. We'll bring in some guest speakers probably on this stage. The other pillar is around leadership development. And we're looking to develop a center for leadership development here in our school system, so kids have experiences to learn about leadership, to actually have opportunities to practice that. So I have an advisory council of 6 very impressive local community members who are involved in leadership, either professionally, personally, and they're helping me craft out the mission and vision of that long term. So a lot of balls in the air, but good ones, really good ones.
A lot going on.
Yeah.
And you speak passionately about all of
I love it. It's great work.
We're here in the library.
Mm-hmm.
And this, as we're taping this, is Banned Book Week.
Officially. And that was not timed for that reason.
Nope.
But yeah, just a coincidence.
Last year, that was a bit of a controversy.
It was.
Looking back on it and looking ahead, what are your thoughts on what went on at Staples in the community around that area?
Well, it's hard to look at locally without considering the national context around the topic. It's become a wedge issue around the country, national level, but really the local, state, and local Board of Ed level. We had a process. We implemented a process. It took longer, I think, than any of us would have cared, but we were able to get a team of a committee to advise on a recommendation, and landed with a recommendation. And we would do the same thing with any other challenge. I mean, we have a process in place. If that process is broken, we'll revisit the process. I think it's unfortunate in a sense that what's happening nationally is having a bit of a chilling effect in a lot of different ways, not just related to just the books. I think that there are a lot of teachers around the country are feeling a chilling effect in just discourse. If I make a misstep in 2023, do I lose my profession? A misstep, not a negligent, intentional, like a misstep. So there are concerns. There's no question. Like what would get me canceled? And this is my livelihood. So I think there's a little bit of that as well. We do have the banned book display up at the high school right now. Mm-hmm. What we've done, what the librarians have done, it's not my project, it's their project. They do have a poster up of about a picture and a name of each of the books that are most challenged right now nationally over the past year. Then they have historical lens. They have a list of the authors who have been historically banned and challenged, and then a sample of some of the books historically that have been banned and challenged. Canterbury Tales, for example, is one of my favorite books in college, right? That's on the list. A couple, I think, a Judy Blume book. The Bluest Eye, Toni Morrison. So there's a historical lens for kids to understand it. But what I do love that they did is they really captured with the title, The Freedom to Read. And that's the spirit of what this is we're celebrating the freedom to read. And I'm sure this will continue, Dan, and right through the election next November, these discussions and debates.
Sure. This half hour goes very, very quickly.
Yeah.
So a few quick questions. You're in your fourth year here now.
Yeah.
What's the most surprising thing you've learned about Westport?
Oh, let's see, surprising. I had heard about, and was somewhat aware from being just north in Weston for almost 4 or 5 years, about the caliber of the folks that are in the classrooms with our kids, our teachers and so forth. And there's a little inside, that's the true magic of the schools. It didn't necessarily surprise me, but it's even beyond what I had considered. The level of commitment, I don't know if folks really realize how many people may walk out of that school at 3, 4, 5 o'clock, and that's just the first shift ended. It is remarkable how much time and energy is put into. I mean, you throw an idea out there and you get 15, 20 people just jump. It's whether if it's, we have a great opportunity for international field trip, I'll do it. I will organize that. I'll make sure the curriculum, it's a curriculum based on that. I need a committee to get together to research growth mindset. I'll do it. And this is all in addition to their normal day job. That's the point I always try to make is I live with a kindergarten teacher, okay? Sunday afternoons, everyone knows, don't bother with mom. She's planning for the week, okay? Most weeknights, she needs time at night. That's the life of faculty. It didn't necessarily surprise me, but it is even beyond what was advertised. Yeah.
Good to hear, especially when education is under such.
It is. It definitely is under assault for a lot of reasons. And listen, I'm sure there are times that we give people good reasons in our profession to criticize us, to be fair. I couldn't be more, it's so cliche, and I don't want to sound trite, but more proud, the commitment level of the folks here. I work most closely with the leadership team. It's 24, our jobs are 24/7. Yeah. 24/7, yeah.
Most interesting part of your week so far?
It started with a text message at 5:45 Monday morning. So this is actually quite interesting. A community member, Peter Boyd, who is very involved with Sustainable Westport, is serving on my advisory council for the Leadership Center. And he and I spent an hour together on Monday in the most exciting, kind of scanning the horizon of what we could do with this idea. So that was interesting. Tonight, I will be presenting a $1.3 million request for capital funds to the Board of Finance, in addition to our 10-year capital plan, in addition to hearing an update on the Long Lots project. So tonight, I'm going to pop the popcorn and sit back and hear what that update is, because I'm hoping for a brand new school.
Any unsung heroes you want to give a shout out to?
You actually beat me to it with your story on VJ Cerullo on Monday. We had an incredibly competitive pool. That's an attractive position, right? I mean, this is a gold standard program.
Athletic director
VJ Cerullo. This is a gold standard program. This is well-resourced athletes that come ready to compete with a great spirit, families that have high expectations and a high level of engagement, and I love all that. VJ came advertised as one of the best around, and he has delivered. And you highlighted one of the areas that goes under the radar. It's not just the sports piece, it's the fostering of young adults, the way he has led that since just March. I mean, you think about it. Give this guy 3 to 5 years. We'll continue to see wins, and we will continue to even see beyond the level of pride we have in how we win and how we conduct ourselves. So he was maybe unsung before Monday, but I'll continue your song.
Great. Last question. Anything I should have asked that I didn't?
Let's see. We talked about a few things. No, I think we covered a good deal. I think that the community will hear an update and a recommendation on the Long Lots building. So that should be out this week. And then that will be a big domino to fall, because our goal was September of 2026 to open up a new school. Mm-hmm. And what this decision actually presents is an opportunity to stay good on that commitment. So that'll be interesting to see where this goes next. And I think
Coleytown L on the horizon?
Oh, that's next. Yeah. So we had an early report back in the spring, just an initial kind of overview. And the recommendation there, which we covered at a board meeting, so it's not private, is that it's a better candidate for a build new than a renovation. It just might not be practical to do it that way without really disrupting kids. So it's a time and money question. Is the answer time? Is the answer money? Is the answer both? That's a community, and I don't tell a community what you can afford. The community tells me. I just make recommendations, and they say, Tom, that's great, but we're only going to afford this. So then we have to, bob and weave around that. But that will be next.
Great.
Yeah. And that is one area, I'll just end on this. That is one area, when I came here, there were some knots that were tangled. And that is one area there was a tangled knot, was around the management of our facilities. And we really have our arms around that right now. We have a great partnership with Collier's project leaders, a consulting group that gives us a real deep bench of architects and engineers on demand when we need them for consultative services. We have a director of facilities, Ted Hunyadi, Elio Longo, our CFO, and we have a really good 10-year plan to manage the facilities. That's what probably was lacking, was just that clarity in what we're doing where and what are the priorities. Keep the buildings dry, warm when it's supposed to be warm, cool when it's supposed to be cool. You solve a lot of facilities issues by just those few things, and that's what the plan really involves. So it comes down to all the competing interests. I mean, you have a beautiful library here that I think was funded in part privately and so forth. There's fire departments, there's a police station, there's sidewalks, which we know because our buses are waiting behind the construction workers there. There's competing priorities, but we have a plan for the community.
Great.
Yeah.
So we have talked about buses, we've talked about budgets, we've talked about buildings,
books.
We've talked about kids, books.
Budgets, buildings, buses, books.
There you go.
All the B's.
the 4 B's. Tom Scarice, always a pleasure, Superintendent of Schools in Westport. Thank you for stopping by. And
thank you.
I hope the rest of your week is both interesting and fruitful.
Absolutely. Thank you, Dan. Appreciate it.
You bet.